Greetings and salutations, everybody. Welcome back to yet another episode, another one of the Snarp Fangle Podcast. I am your host, Jake Metzger, along with the, whoa, Red Bulls are falling everywhere, the magical bearded man himself with the Red Bull Fanache, David Reed. David, how are you doing, my good sir?
I am here.
Yes, and I'm so glad you are here, and I'm so glad I am here. And because let me tell you, man, I'm glad to be here. I am so happy. Today, I luckily was able to get away from fire stuff around today, and I was able to head on south from Red Bluff to here at home. And now we're sitting down in the house, and we're recording a podcast. Oh yeah, let me tell you. Oh yeah. Let's see. I think we have some reader inquiries here. We're just going to start off right away, ladies and gentlemen. And we're going to start with some reader inquiries. And it kind of is relevant to today's topic. Because today's topic, David, will be more of a maybe catching up with you and me. Maybe more fire adventures. We'll see. So let's hop right into it, shall we, ladies and gentlemen? Ellen wrote in and says... we hear of them using retardant in water. This is about fires, by the way, wildfires. We hear of them using retardant in water, but we don't hear of them using foam to fight fires. I believe they often deploy foam at airport fires. Why not then combating wildfires? To be quite honest, Ellen, I don't really know the answer of why they don't use foam. I've seen it in other states. I've seen it in California, but I think the foam you're referring to is more like oil and gas kind of fires. Wildfires are more like, you know what? This is it's a wildfire. There's brush, there's trees, there's light fuel in flames, and so really foam is kind of for compacting things in, as far as I understand it. I'm not a scientist. I'm not an expert. I don't know fire science that very well, but that would be my answer to you. I don't think they use foam because, well, the fire retardant itself is actually kind of a fertilizer. Speaking of which, so when you see the giant air tankers dropping and it's all pink and red, that's basically retardant mixed with a bunch of different things, but it's really good for plants, actually. Back in the old days, I was being told by my coworker that they had stuff that was really toxic and really like if you got it on your skin, like you definitely don't want this stuff on your skin, the current stuff that's fertilizer right now, but the old stuff was like it was nasty. Like you want it off your skin and ASAP, and it would eat through metal on your cars. Like it was that acidic and terrible. And it would actually destroy all of the greenery and whatever shrubbery and grass it got put on. And nothing would grow back there. So it's like, oh my Lord. So now they actually have fertilizer. So whatever is put out there, basically it's not going to catch on fire. I've seen it in action, and it's pink and it's stuff, and it gets on your cars when you're going across the road. It's pretty slick, actually. And it's water and fertilizer, and yeah, it's pink. So go figure. And some of these planes, David, are actually dropping I want to say tens of thousands of gallons, like 20,000 gallons, dude. It's crazy. So those are the big ones. Foam, probably because they use them at airports. Well, probably because there's oil and gas fires at airports. So moving on, Joshua writes in and he says, how exactly do you contain the fires? Like, what are the most common ways? Well, let me explain. So as far as I understand, right now I'm logistics and operator at a certain contractor with CAL FIRE, and we run a water tender. And so basically that's not really our area, and we're not really in charge of containing the fire. We're here to provide support for them. But what they do is they get hot shots, also known as just fire crews, and they take a thing out with them that's like a mix between a metal rake and a metal shovel made into one tool. And they take a bunch of stuff that's hauled in their pack. They're carrying 50, 75 pounds at times. And these crews are in charge of going out to where the flames are and little fires that are isolated, and actually turning over the dirt. And they're in charge of just turning it over, spreading around the heat, and that way they can put as little as maybe a cup of water on that fire, and we'll be able to put it out, versus just straight water onto that one spot. So they dig it up, spread it around so that the heat dissipates, and then they can use less water and be more efficient that way. Another way they contain fires is they actually drive dozers through the land. So they'll take dozers, park it on the side of the road with the semi-truck, unload it, hop in, start driving, and they'll just put their scoop in, or whatever they call it, and the metal, whatever it's called, and they'll just strike it across the land. And it's really interesting. I've seen it in action, and some of these lands are real gnarly and hilly, and you get paid a lot more when you're on a dozer. That's a very lucrative business right there. But these guys, sometimes up to 4 dozers width, they'll just go and just drive through the land. And especially in some of the hills that we're participating in right now, man, there's some gnarly, like 45 degree, even probably 60 degree angles that they're going up, and it's crazy. But those dozers are so powerful that it's something I learned on my first fire is this, like, man, you put that sucker in, he was talking about the water truck in the context, but this applies to dozers too. And I put that sucker in first gear and that truck will climb a tree. That's how fast, that's how much power's in that car. With dozers though, it's a whole entirely different scenario. And those guys will you just go, man. Like, it's tracks, it's not tires, bro. So thank you, Josh, for your question, and thank you, Ellen, as well. We have a few more. Wesley writes in, how do you stop the fire from spreading, and where do you get the water for the water tankers? Excellent question. So in every fire, you have to figure out where your water sources is, lakes, rivers, ocean, maybe, as well as hydrants. So for us water tenders, hydrants are preferable because you just hook up the hose of the hydrant, hook it up to your truck, turn on the valves, and go, and just start filling it up. And then you put everything away and head on out. But you also have capabilities on some water trucks like we do where you actually can draft from a river. So you hook up some hoses together, some real thick hoses that are pretty big. I'd say like four inches in like diameter, or what's it called, circumference. We run a 2.5. I think the hydrants run 2.5s, and then we have a 3.5 inch adapter, and then minutia stuff. But anyway, there's an ability to draft from a river. So you kind of like push, you have the hose in your arms and you're pushing it back and forth. And it's basically, there's a function at the end of the hose that's trapping water inside. So the water builds up as you go up the hose, and you get in and you're priming it. That's what you're doing. You're priming it. And you hook it up to the truck. And if you have enough water and it's all primed to go, you can start actually suctioning water from the river or lake or wherever you're at. And so that's a very crucial and key part of fighting fires, is when you have to find water sources. And sometimes you know where they are when you get there, but most of the times you don't. You have to figure it out your own, or figure out it at camp, or ask some people where they have found them, ask other people around you. This is what I've been told over and over and over is, if you don't know something, ask questions, see what people can tell you. If you don't know where something is, ask them. So that's what I would say. So in terms of your question, Wesley, how do you stop the fire from spreading? Well, you use water retardant, you have crews out there, you keep it safe, and so on and so forth. And I have another answer to your question, but I'm going to save it for later. Next is Katie. She writes in, maybe do they put them out? Let's see, what does she say here? So she basically is asking, do they put them out at the newest regions and go from there on the outward part, or do they also predict where the fire will spread? That's a good question, Katie. And yes, they do predict where the fire will spread. Right now, we're on the Park Fire at the moment, which is started in North Chico and has gotten all the way up to Mineral, California, over in Highway 36. In fact, it jumped 36 and it headed up to 44, so up to Susanville and all that kind of stuff. You and me, David, actually have a wonderful story about Susanville with Steven and Matt and Dad and all them.
We were stuck there for a little while.
Yeah, we got snowed in on our way to Reno for Steven's bachelor trip, and I won't go. That's a story for another time. But we know Susanville. Let me tell you, we were trapped. It was Donner's Pass. We were trapped in the snow. It was horrible, and we bought 80 chicken nuggets. But that's a story for a different time.
Oh yeah.
So to answer your question, Katie, yes. So they basically try to hold off the fire wherever it is. So if they know if the wind's blowing specifically, that's a big indicator of where it's going to go. So in this Park Fire, for example, that I'm on, we had the south wind blowing and south west winds. So it was heading up north and it was cooking. But let me tell you this, people who live in Chico who are listening, in Chico, California, if we had a north wind the time this fire started, it would have been a repeat of the campfire, but with Chico in this case. The campfire, the whole town of Paradise was wiped out, as well as other surrounding communities. And with this fire, it took out Cohasset, the city of Cohasset, and some places in Forest Ranch, and lots of other communities in between. So unfortunately, that is a terrible case. But if there was a north wind, it would have headed south and basically take out most of Chico. So it's a really sad scenario, all aspects considering. I mean, regardless if it was a what if or a not what if, the current scenario is very sad. But yeah, to finish answering your question, it's basically a lot of it's the wind and where it's blowing, especially in California. There's lots of north and south winds that blow through here, mostly north. That's what we call it, the old north wind. And for some reason, it was south breeze blowing most of these last couple of weeks. And it was very peculiar behavior. And it was very, very gusty the day the park fire started. So the fire just kept heading north and everything and all that. And so you just got to look at the wind, and it's funny too because, well, not funny, but it's interesting to think about because I was talking to some people, and this park fire is taking the exact same behavior and avenue that the Dixie Fire did. So the Dixie Fire was in 2018. It went to 1.2 million acres, and right now this one's about a little under 400,000 acres right now, and it's still growing. But we're starting to get a handle on it at this time of recording the podcast, by the time you're listening. So yeah, it's wind. It's also fuel, and where the fuel is at. A lot of this fuel that is burning right now has been, well, basically growing for the last 2 years. We haven't really had a big fire season in the last 2 years. There's always big fires every year, but usually it's not hopping. Usually it's hopping like it is, which is normal. But the last 2 years have been very dry in terms of activity, in terms of wildfires. And so there's no wildfires, and with the mixture of that and the rain we've had, very wet winters, you get lots of fuel that grows and then dries out in the summer. So that's kind of what you're looking at. You have all this fuel in the mountains that has been building up the last 2 years, Katie, and now it's dry and it's windy and the spark lit it. So craziness. So there's different ridges and different more minutiae stuff I can get into, like, the way the ridges are, in terms of also the wind can go up a ridge and the heat also rises. So that's another factor you got to take in consideration. There's a lot that goes into it. So let's move on to our next question. And Stephanie wrote in, and David, I think I might need your help on this one because I don't know all the full science of it, but I think you might be helping out with this one. She says, can you talk about the plumes and what happens when they rise and dissipate, and if they collapse and why they are so dangerous? So as far as I understand, the plumes rise because heat rises and it goes into the atmosphere. Now, depending on how windy it is up in the atmosphere, you might get a chance where the delta winds kind of carry the smoke and kind of dissipate it. But in some cases, when it's not so windy up in the high altitudes, you can get plumes that, reach up into the stratosphere, 40,000 feet. You can't even breathe at that height, and the smoke still rises that high. And you know what happens after that, as far as I understand, is when it finally breaks apart and dissipates, it can create smoke cover. It can actually create precipitation, and actually create thunderstorms, and then ignite more fires. And that's one reason why it's so dangerous here in California, is because of the Sierras and the mountains and everything. Is they're prime suspect for this kind of behavior. So you got to be careful. So David, do you have anything to add to that? As far as you understand how plumes work? How they dissipate?
I don't think I do.
Oh man, I thought you were gonna reach back into your fire science class that you told me about.
Oh yes,
so intently.
My years of study in fire science that I'm not making use of at all.
Well, we'll have to save it for another time. So anyway, yeah, to answer your question, Stephanie, that's as far as I understand it. I'm not a huge educator in the fires, but I have had firsthand experience and people telling me things while on the fire, and that's pretty much how it works. When we were over on the Sites fire, we didn't really have an issue with that because it's just rolling hills and foothills. The wind will still go up the hill, and the heat will still rise, but it's not like the Sierras where you're talking about huge mountainous ranges with trees and all this kind of humidity in the ground that's going to rise. So it's an entirely different beast on the east side of California. And that concludes our inquiries for today. David, what'd you think? Were they good inquiries or bad? Let's rate them.
I'm giving them 0 out of 10.
0 out of 10. Worst ones we've ever had. Worst ones we've ever had. They're the worst ones we've ever had. Let me be clear. It's just absolutely pitiful, some of these questions. No, they were actually very good. So
Yeah,
thank
they
you.
were good questions.
Yeah, thank you, audience, for writing in. And
It was yes, it was nice to hear. It was nice to hear from people,
Yeah, you guys are awesome. So thank you for supporting the podcast. And while we're talking about that, make sure to, like, share, and subscribe, and tell your friends about the Snarp Fangle goodness, and become a fellow Fangle over here on your listening ears.
All right.
Wow. What are we doing? I was channeling my salacious crumb, David. Oh. That's what I was doing.
Oh, dear Lord. All right.
As I take a drink of water. All right.
Anyway, why don't you tell us a little bit about your fire experience this time around?
So, welcome to the more adventures of Jake's Wildfire escapades. So, let's see. It's been exactly 1 week today since I got a call.
Since your last confession.
Since my last confession, David. And, I need to tell you about my gumdrop obsession. So, I just can't stand not having a gumdrop every day. I go through a pack a day, David. I'm sorry.
A pack a day.
Anyway,
all right.
So we got a call Tuesday. I got a call Tuesday night. I was just falling asleep at 1:00 in the morning. My boss calls me. He's like, "Hey, just so you know," I can tell he's really tired. He's like, "Just woke up," and he's like, "They just called us over to Quincy, California, over to the Smith Fire, and we're gonna leave at 5:45. Meet me in my house at 5:45." So I'm like, "Okay." So I get 4 hours of sleep, and I'm able to wake up, get ready. I have everything. Everything I had was good to go. I just had to go grab some more pomegranate juice, and then I was set. And then I headed over to Chico, and we drove into Quincy, and then we went over to Gray Eagle, California, to fight the gold complex fires. So basically, in this scenario, you had in the mountains. This was the Forest Service that called us, and they were fighting 3 different fires, and they were calling in resources. We were I'm not going to say that. That would be giving up too much information, but we were very early in one of the resource counts is what I'll say. And it was very honoring. We were like, wow, we got called really early. We were only this one resource, it was very honoring. So anyway, I think we were one of the very first people to get called. Water tender. We drive up there. Mario's driving the truck. I'm driving the chase rig behind him, the Toyota, the truck. And then we're heading up there. We're heading up down south in the mountains. It was about a 2-hour drive, so it wasn't too bad. Left at 6 in the morning, got there about 9. Traffic, all that kind of construction. A lot of construction on, it was 32, I believe, was the freeway. 70. We went down 70. That was it. So we went down 70. A lot of construction right now this time of year. And so we got there. We got confirmed of what shifts we were working. So we were working 24s. So that means we got to call our other guy, Chris. So we called Chris because he lived down there. We got confirmed. So he started heading up there. So then I follow Mario up there, and they're doing IA. They're supporting the engines with water. We go down this dirt road, David. Let me tell you, it was just like a mountain dirt road that was like barely maintained. Lots of rocks, lots of huge boulders, all this kind of stuff. It wasn't insanely dangerous, but it was certainly dangerous. So that's what we were dealing with. So I followed him up there. It was a good drive, beautiful drive, wonderful drive, by the way. One of the beautiful mountains. Oh, goodness. So anyway, we went over there to Gray Eagle, California. We met everybody at the fire station. It was literally in the fire station was 2. We go through where the main engines are. We go to the other side of the building. we go to the office, the main center of the building. Go to the other side of the building, the eating area, and it's just 2 folding tables with 2 ladies and maybe some food, and that's it. That's all they have set up right now. So we go out. I follow Mario out. We get all set up. We figure out where he needs to be. And then I leave him. I go back to town in Gray Eagle. Gray Eagle's being evacuated at this point. So you have lots of people running around trying to figure out what they're doing. And it was chaos. So we're in Gray Eagle. I get back to town. As I'm going back to town, I just go along going along 89. And there's just a ton of people parking on the side of the road and taking pictures of this fire out there. And so there's 3 fires altogether, and the main one was Smith. So it was all in this mountain range. It was a beautiful day, and the plume starts rising. I actually have pictures of it too, and it's going high in the sky, and Gray Eagle's like right next to it. Like, so it's probably like 5 miles away from the fire, probably a little bit more. But yeah, let me tell you, it was scary, and I've never been on a Forest Service fire before, and there's a lot of unique challenges that popped up. One of them was I ran into a boulder. So I was in town. I parked off to the side, pulled into this random driveway that leads to a bunch of different businesses, gravel driveway, and it's very wide. There's plenty of room for me. Totally fine, right? And so I give Mom a call, let her know what's going on. It's about noon at this point, and we've been up since 4 a.m, so I'm a little tired, and I'm kind of shook up a little bit because there's fire over there and all this stuff. So I just bar the course. So I get off the phone with her, and I'm about to pull off to the road, and I'm like, wow, there's a lot of people freaking out right now. I'm going to wait a little bit. And so I see people packing their cars. There's heading down 89, and there's, and some people are just chilling out that they're like, oh, you know what? We're not under evacuation order right now, which was the case. We're not under evacuation order. It's just people were like, saw the smoke and plume, and they started heading out. So it's just chaos. So what happened next was interesting. I pull out, I look both ways, I see it's clear, and sure enough, I pull off to the right. I don't see it in my blind spot, but there's decorative boulders that are about probably 4,000 pounds each, David, and they're just decorating the side of the road, and I don't see it in my blind spot. I turn right, and I hit it, and I'm like, oh, shoot. I turn the other way a little bit, and I hit the gas accidentally, and so it scrapes the car on the side of the doors, and I'm like, oh, my God. And I actually drove over it. That's how much I was going. But I didn't go out in the road or anything. I was able to turn around and just park off to the side, and I'm like, oh, my God, are you freaking kidding me? And so I checked the damage. It was fine. The door had a huge dent in the bottom, but it still shut it fine. Okay, cool. And then there's some scrapes on the back door, and the tires were fine. That was my biggest concern because those tires are big off-road Rhino tires, and they're expensive. So thank God, those Rhino tires, full endorsement from me. They survived rolling over a giant, and this boulder's about 4 feet high. It's huge. So I took pictures of everything for insurance, took pictures of the boulder, which actually had scrape marks on it from the truck. And it was off-centered. So it's definitely something happened to this boulder. Yeah, I moved it about 3 feet. That's how far I moved the boulder. So that was fun. So I was real shook up after that. So I was like, I went back to the fire station. Nothing's set up. There's no resources or anything you can go to usually in this kind of scenario. And so I just get my cot. I go into the fire station. I ask the secretary lady. And remember, the secretary lady is important. I'm going to bring her up when we get to the next fire. And she was super kind. Her name was Pam. Super awesome lady. Wonderful gal. And she just took really good care of me. I said, hey, is there anywhere I can sleep for a little bit, take a nap, And she's like, yeah, no problem. So she set me up in this office area. It was the coolest part of the station. They had no AC in the station, but she said that was the coolest part, and it was. So I got to sleep for 10, 15 minutes. And then my boss is like, hey, you need to get this piece of equipment working, our Garmin, which is our satellite emergency signal thing. So I'm like, okay. It's basically a little walkie-talkie looking thing that connects to satellites. You pay for it, and you can connect your phone to it through an app, and you can send text messages anywhere in the world as long as you have a clear sky above you. So pretty neat stuff. It's called the Garmin InReach. So I try to get that set up. I'm stressing out. Finally, Chris shows up, and I'm like, oh, thank God he's here. Okay, cool. Chris is cool. And he checks out the truck, and he's like, oh, don't worry about it. The Toyotas, they just take the outing part off and put another one on. You're fine. I'm like, okay, cool. Awesome. So I have to deal with all that and insurance and everything. So that was a fun thing to do the next, I think I did it the next day. Yeah. So that was fun. So at this point, after I get Chris back up there for the night shift, all the resources are coming into this fire station. You get so many different folks that are coming in for dozers, water tenders, engines. They're all calling everybody. They're like, you need to get this fire out because this is a big forest fire. It can get really out of hand and fast. So by the time they called all the resources and day one ends, it's at 2,000 acres, so it's not terrible, but there's multiple fires around it. Me and Mario find an old ranger camping ground down the road that he was actually stationed at on his first assignment, actually, when he was part of CAL FIRE, or part of the Forest Service, I should say. So we just pull in, and he's like, I don't think anybody's going to give us trouble. And I'm like, yeah, I think so. I think we're safe. And sure enough, nobody bothered us. We just parked the truck back in, put up our cots, put up our little tents that go over our cots. And it was cool enough that night that you didn't need to cover anything, and it wasn't too cold. And we just slept through the night. And I woke up, the train woke me up in the middle of the night, and it was cold. And so I grabbed my sleeping bag and rolled up in it in my cot, and then just slept through the night again. So day 2, we go, and at this point, the 3 fires are combined. So they pushed the fires and made a perimeter, and all the fires burned into each other. So now it's kind of just, they have a perimeter, and they want to make sure nothing slops over or causes spot fires. So that's the whole mission for everybody. And let me tell you, man, the Forest Service compared to CAL FIRE, I've been spoiled by CAL FIRE fires, dude, because they get in there and they get in there ASAP. They provide you food, they provide you lodging, they provide you little sleeper trailers you can sleep in, which are awesome, nice AC stuff, and they provide you chow or food. They provide you lunches, all this kind of stuff. CAL FIRE is great. The Forest Service in the particular county we were in, which was Plumas County, was dragging their feet, David. Oh my God. And I'll be real, we were spoiled. But yeah, we had to camp out the first night. There's still no sleeper trailers. They didn't even have a camp set up the second day, which is fine. This is our first day or second day we're here, and the fire was already going for like a day, I'm guessing. So it's chaos. People are trying to figure out stuff. We go to briefing. We relieve Chris. I was able to... Oh, the second day we were still in the fire station. So he slept in the fire station. I was able to get to an RV park just down the road where we were camping that night before, and they had cabins to rent. So we rented a cabin. Cabin unfortunately had no AC, but it was a freaking cabin, and I'm cool with that. And so it was literally down the road from the ranger station. It was called Little Bear RV Park. And I'm going to tell you, David, this cabin was so delightful and petite and cute, and I loved it, and it was awesome, and the people there were great. I cannot wait to go back there and take a small vacation in the mountains. Oh my gosh, it's going to be great. So anyway, that's where we're camped out for the next few days we're there. So what's after that? So day 2, we sleep in the fire station. I can't remember. Oh, I get everything set up with the insurance, make calls, all this stuff, Les Schwab, all that kind of stuff. Oh, by the way, when we first got there, the address we were given was Skip's 4x4 diesel. And I'm like, interesting. Well, we had to go get checked in and get inspected first. Okay, cool. So they inspected the water truck, and then we went in there. But dude, when we got there was a guy there that was like, had a resource number that was earlier than us. And he was all high and mighty. He's like, I was the first one called. And we're like, oh, there's a leak in your water truck. And he's like, well, just you wait. That's going to happen to you too. And I'm like, okay, well, whatever. So this guy was like being really weird. Just real sketch. Like he was trying to get information. Like, what's your number? And what are you doing? Oh, where are you guys coming from? And which is a normal question to ask. But the manner he was asking them was pretty sketch. So... we kind of stayed away from this guy, and you have to play the game sometimes. You got to be careful. You don't know who you can trust out there. Some of the people who are contractors and even part of CAL FIRE, who are legit part of CAL FIRE, can be a little sketch sometimes. Not always the most savory people, not the most savory people out there. I think I'm using that word correctly. So anyway, second day is over. Chris gets okay sleep, but thankfully he's able to sleep in a cool place, and so. We then had him bring him back up, bring Mario back. I have the cabin set up, so we sleep in the cabin. And God, I had some of the worst sleep that night. Just it was stuffy in the cabin. It was not good, like good weather. It was really warm, and I just had some of the worst sleep in like probably my life. Honestly, like it was not comfortable at all, which is weird because the night after that I had great sleep. Like it was cool, it was nice, and I was able to just crash. But yeah, I had really bad sleep, so I was tired the entire day after that. So I'm trying to think of details of what happened these couple days, but it's kind of all blurring together. It's been a week. So by that third day, Chris is sleeping in the cabin in the day. I'm doing some errands. I'm doing some recon. I'm doing some other stuff. We also had breakfast at a wonderful place in Portola, California called Baristo, I think, Cafe. And oh my God, David, they had a pulled pork breakfast burrito that was to die for. It was like pulled pork, eggs, potatoes, cheese, all the good stuff, man. Oh my God, you can tell I'm a guy because I'm talking about his food, man. Oh man, this burrito's to die for, man. Oh, I'd sell a sheep to get that burrito again. Like, that's how good it was, man. Oh, dude. So great, and they were really nice. They said, "Oh, we have complimentary like croissant sandwiches for you guys since you're firefighters." And I'm like, "Oh, that's super sweet." And just everybody I met who was in the local towns was super grateful and thankful and sweet. And I didn't really get that a lot in the other fires. I'm not saying it wasn't there, but I just didn't get exposed to a lot of that. So it was very, very heartwarming. So very, very nice, very wonderful people, and Gray Eagle and Portola. So let's see. Third day, they're finally getting base camp set up in some random soccer field or hayfield or something. They have the cooks out there. The inmates are cooking the food and everything. So the kitchen's getting set up. Porta potties are out there. They're starting to get the showers going. But that's pretty much all they have. By the time we're leaving this fire, David, they had no sleepers. They had no laundry. But that's just par for the course. Forest Service isn't that quick on their feet like CAL FIRE is. So that's just how they are. So now I know in the future, pack your tent, pack your stuff, make sure you have extra snacks and food, and just make sure you have someplace to go. Also, I tried to call the hotels, but good luck, man, calling in the afternoon when the fire's going on, because, well, everybody's got to go to sleep somewhere. So people are calling and just booking all these hotels. Some of them were also raising their prices. So it was a little sketch. So maybe don't go to all the hotels in Portola. But they had some wonderful like resorts in Gray Eagle and just a lot of really cool places to go, little antique stores, a lot of really cool just local stuff in this local community in Gray Eagle. And dude, David, this is the jacked up part of this. It's spelled G-R-A Eagle. And it's all one word. Gray Eagle. I know. I was like, what the heck? Like, what kind of retarded person came up with this? Why? Why? Like, Grigel? Like, why is Gragel? Like, is this some Polish family that came here and that's their last name they were given? Like, come on, you people letting people into America in whatever century this was. Like, God, it just makes me mad. Like, English is hard enough, dude. Like, this is why everybody around the world's confused by it. Like, come on. Even though it's number 1 or number 2 speaking language in the world. Like, come on, y'all. That's why we're number 2. So anyway, Gray Eagle was so delightful in terms of just the people, the town, everything. Portola was a little bit sketch. I went to a Valero there a couple times. That was, oh God, it reminded me of downtown Chico. It was bad. So don't go to Portola. Go to Gray Eagle. So anyway, I say goodbye to Pam. We get the cabin. I talked to the people at the cabin. They have a laundry thing. They have showers at the cabin. It's awesome. Free showers, free bathroom, which is expected, free bathroom. But it's like in an RV park, so it's like a campground. So super chill, super great. I was even told people were donating stuff to the firefighters while we were there that were leaving it either at the office or the fire station. We weren't able to get any of it, but it was really cool that they were able to do that, and it was very thoughtful. So, and let me tell you, man, God was working. There was some nights when we were like, stuff would just line up perfectly, or we would hit the green light just in time, or we would make a call to some place and get exactly what we need. I would call a service station and they'd be ready to go if I needed them. I would call Les Schwab. They're ready to go in Portola. Different challenges, different gas stations were out of service, different stuff like that. Of course, I crashed into the boulder. Me and Mario figured that out in terms of insurance and how that's going to get covered. It's coming, I'm going to have to pay for some of it, so that's what I'm going to leave it at. So it was just really a crazy trip, and Gold Complex is what they ended up calling it, because it was 3 fires, and when it's more than one, they call it a complex. And we were kind of just hitting it a day after day, getting it done, getting it finished. They finally had sleepers. That's right. They finally had sleepers the last 2 days we were there. And they were by the fire station of all places, not the main camp, just the fire stations. So, yeah. So the last day, we did cabin for 2 days, camped out the first, cabin for 2, get the sleepers the rest of the time. So that was really nice. Really, really nice. Let's see what happened after that. So there's some stuff that happened after that where we basically got diverted to the park fire. And the way it happened was very, very interesting and strange. I can't really go into super much detail, but what I will say is we had a plan and we knew we were supposed to be down here at Park Fire, but we're on assignment. We don't want to leave assignment. We don't want to self-demob, that would look bad. So we're mostly relying on the grace of God and praying that we could come down here and start fighting in our backyard. Because when we were at Gray Eagle, David, and audience, the Park Fire of 2024 started, which is the one I'm currently on right now. And this fire was cooking and booking it. So you had huge south gusty winds. I believe it was July 23rd or July 22nd or 22nd, I believe. I could be wrong. Let me look at my calendar real quick just to make sure I have the details right. Because let's see, when did we leave? We left Tuesday, the 22nd. I think it was the 24th it started.
Yeah, the fire started the 24th.
Wednesday, the 24th of July in 2024.
I know because I woke up at about 9 o'clock at night.
And you could see it, huh?
Just intending to go to the kitchen for something to drink and then go back to bed. And I happened to look out the back door and I could see the glow of the flames just over the foothills and a giant plume of smoke. Looked like a freaking mushroom cloud, man. Yeah,
I was told it looked like the campfire, basically. Because I remember waking up that morning. It was I think it was the 24th of November, 2018. And let me tell you, I woke up getting ready to go to class at Butte College, and then I look outside and I'm like, why is it kind of dark out there? I look out my window and it's just smoke. It's like 7 a.m. I'm like, dude, what the heck? That wasn't like that before I went to sleep. And sure enough, that thing started at 0500, and by the time I woke up, it was already 2 hours and it was covering the valley. Like, that's how bad it was. To give people a sense of the campfire who aren't aware of it, it started at 0500, faulty PG&E equipment, power lines. It sparked. The gusty northern wind was blowing probably 50 miles an hour. And that sucker just blew through the mountains. So really sad scenario. And sad for this one too, Park Fire. A guy, I don't know his name, some weird a-hole, and crazy probably guy on acid or something, had his truck or his car. He caught his car on fire and he drove the car into a ditch that it looked like it was a dry riverbed. And the car just blew up and started this fire. And it was, I think, at 4 o'clock on that Wednesday, the 24th of July.
It was about 4:45, something like that.
Yeah, because
I missed the start of it because I went to bed around that time. And I only saw it just because I happened to wake up like at around 9 o'clock when the sun where there's barely just a glimmer of sunlight still left in the sky. And so, yeah, it was like, it freaked me out. I thought a bomb had went off.
Yeah, I was actually taking a nap at the time it was started, and I got the Watch Duty app and it notified me. It's like, hey, Park Fire north of Chico. And I'm like, oh, shoot. So I look at it and it's like 0.25 acres. And I'm like, cool. Literally 2 minutes later, 10 acres. I'm like, what the heck? And so it was, I think it was doing 5,000 acres an hour, something crazy like that. So it got to like 40,000 acres in like 5 hours. It was crazy, dude. So, which is not correct math, but it was heading, I think it was like 10,000 or something crazy like that. It was booking, and the south winds were blowing. They were able to get it controlled above Chico. All of northern Chico was fine, basically, except for maybe the airport area. So that got evacuated immediately. And then it's just been all this last week and through the weekend, it's been day after day of evacuation order upgraded, evacuation warning upgraded to order, new evacuation warnings, new evacuation orders constantly through the app. And I'm like, holy crap, this thing is cooking. I just can't believe this. And I've never been on something as big as this before. But anyway, continuing story. So the 24th, me and Mara are having dinner. He FaceTimes with his wife. She's like, she's in northern Chico right before the airport. And she's filming it where they, we're right there. And she's filming it for us. And we're like, oh my, like there's flames that are like, I think heard it reported they were 5,000 feet in the air. Like, what the heck? And that wasn't by Chico. But there were some really high flames. We could see them far off in the distance. Like, and when it's a flame that high and it's burning that wood up there in the trees, that stuff can burn for days. The trees can be burning inside and the fire already is moving on, So really dangerous stuff. I mean, it looked like there's that one in Oregon that was huge where like it looked like Mordor. You've probably seen that video, David, on the freeway. People are filming it. And as they're driving down the freeway, it's just the mountain on the side is just on fire. Like it looks like Mordor. And so it was pretty much like that when we were gone. And we felt really weird not being there because that's our backyard. This is our home. And so it's going up, across the ridge, across the mountains. By the time we got to it, we were heading up to the Butte Meadows in that area. That's where we were stationed the first day we were there. And let me tell you, it was scary just seeing the flames and seeing where the plumes were heading off. But where we were stationed, it was already way up north from there. But anyway, we were in Gray Eagle when we heard about it. The 24th, we were having dinner, and I was like, holy cow, this is crazy. So at this point, we could already tell that the gold complex we were on is starting to fade away. We were getting containment completely around it. We were driving in the flames, driving in all that kind of stuff, the crews and everything. And immediately the 25th, at briefing that next morning at 0600, we were listening to them, and they were saying, just so you guys know, by the time this day is over, probably half of you will be gone because you need to go down into the valley. And just so you know, when you go down there, you're going from a fire that is contained and is basically taken care of. You're going from an assignment that is somewhat normal to the middle of hell, just so you guys are aware. And I was like, dang, okay. So we were hoping to get diverted, but it didn't happen the first or that second day, I believe. Or let's see, it was Saturday morning we headed out. So it was Saturday morning. So it was like Wednesday the fire started. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. By the fourth day of the park fire, we were able to get diverted down to Chico. So family emergency, man, like all in honesty, we were able to get down there. And it was a really big Saturday was rough, man. It was a really tough day. But I appreciated my time in Gray Eagle, and I really will definitely go back there. There's some really great people. I love that RV park. Even though that cabin was stuffy the first night, if I go there in like September, October, oh man, me and the wife are going to go there and have a nice mountain vacation and just enjoy the views, That's my thought. So anyway, Park Avenue fire. So we go to the park fire Saturday, the 27th, I believe. Yes. That morning, we're able to get diverted. And, whoo, man, let me tell you, it was a rough goings, man. We were reported to Silver Dollar Fairgrounds. Stuff was happening in our team. I'm not going to go into super much detail, but just stuff about like confusion and miscommunication, basically. And it was a lot to deal with, but I won't go into specifics. So I felt bad for Chris because he was up for like, let's see, he woke up at like 5 the day before on Friday, and it was about noon when we got there on Saturday. So he was awake for quite a bit of time by then. And I think it was like 2 o'clock when we got to where we were staging at, from Chico over to Butte Meadows that first day. And it was interesting because I'm trying to figure out what I want to say. A lot has happened, but I want to make sure that I say the right stuff. So what I will say is there was some unique challenges that arose within our team, stuff that misunderstandings and the such. And what I'm going to say is that on the way back down the mountain, I knew I had to have a talk with my boss. And so I was kind of praying and trying to figure out what to say to him because Mario wanted me to go back, get the radio cloned, come back up. Cool, sounds great. And so the whole time I'm texting some people, asking them for prayer. You were one of them, David. And I was very thankful for those, by the way. Thank you. And I was trying to figure out what I was going to say. I was listening to worship music the whole day, trying to figure out what I'm going to tell him, trying to make sure I say the right words, praying for God to give me the right things to say. And I also wanted to be honest. I didn't want to beat around the bush. I wanted to be honest with him, because at this point I was questioning whether I was even going to stay working for him, is what I'll say. But I knew I was going to stay definitely through the season. I just didn't know what was going to happen after that. So I go get him the radio. I head back up there and praying. I stop off the side road. I was also tripped up because one reason I was so upset is because I was mad at myself because I left my boots, my fire boots in Grey Eagle, California. So we just got done driving 2 hours, right? And I'm looking for my boots. I'm like, where are they? And we took a shower. We finally were able to take a shower at the camp that night. And I left them there. So I was really, really, really upset at that because it was on me. And stuff happens, I get it, but it was a big thing because those are hundreds of dollars right there that are just gone. And I need them to stay safe when I'm, in the fire, just in case for safety. So anyway, I head back up north. Mario gets in the truck with me. I said, we have to have a talk. And we talk, and I explain everything that I'm upset about or I need to figure out with him. And I'll tell you what, David, well, basically his reply to me was an answer for every single thing I had that completely satisfy is not the right word, but it basically opened my eyes to be like, he had an answer for literally everything and an answer to the point where I'm like, oh, that's why this is happening. Oh, that's why. Oh, this, then that. Oh, okay. And it just really opened my eyes and really revealed to me the kind of person he is, which is an excellent leader. He is, I'd say, a military genius. He was in the Army for a long time and has been in the firefighting business in all aspects of fighting business for the last 20 years. So he's those things as well as a very, very wonderful man. And those are things I really took for granted, to be quite honest, through these couple of fires. And I didn't really fully realize who he was and what kind of person he was, and I took it for granted. And so that conversation, I was left extremely, was left sober and humble, and I definitely knew my answer, which was to stay with our crew and stay with him for sure. And a newfound of respect for him as well. So, I can't go into specific detail, but it was very nice to get those answers, and my eyes were open, man. And we're a team, and I don't think I'm going to be leaving this guy anytime soon. So, God is good. Gave me the right words to say. Gave Mario the right words to say, and made it clear to me of what I needed to, what needed to be said to me to make me understand it, So anyway, all that said, everything was answered. I was really happy about it. And I was just so relieved, and it was a really good conversation that we had. And it was the Lord really worked some wonders there. But the boots. So on my way up there, I park off I'm heading up 32. And I park off to one of the neighborhoods before Bruce Road. So I park off into one of the neighborhoods. There's a turnout, and I go into the turnout, and I tried to put on these extra boots that Mario has. And I'm like, I know they won't fit me, but let me at least try. They're 10.5, so I'm a 13. I highly doubt it. I try putting them on. I go to the other side of the truck, away from the road on the sidewalk. I open the door, pick the boots out, put them on the ground, trying to put them on. I'm like, shoot, I can't. I then lift my foot away, and I noticed something on the concrete. And this is how I knew God was working in this whole scenario. Because I'm like, what the heck? I saw in my concrete, no joke, David. I have a picture of it, and I'll show you what it is, and then I'll reveal to the audience what it was I saw on the ground in the concrete. So let me scroll down here and get that for you if I can. So we are going down. Here we go. David, take a look at this. So for the video watchers or audio listeners, basically I looked down in the side of the truck and I freaking see the word, my name, Jake, written in the concrete. And I was like, what are the freaking odds? And that was right before we went and had our talk. So God was moving, man. And I don't know what that meant, really, in all honesty, but I knew it had something to do with what was going on. And it was a reminder that to remember why you're here is what I'll say, I think. So God is really good. And what are the odds? I park right there. I look down, I'm putting on these boots that don't fit, and I see my name literally written in the concrete, Jake. I'm like, dude, what the heck? I showed that to Mario on the way back. So I go back up to him. I take Chris back up. So I go up to him, came back, get Chris, go back. So it was a lot of driving that day. I was wiped out. So let's see, where are we at? So I'm coming back with Mario, and I show him that, and he's like, bro. And I'm like, I know, right? Dude, what the heck? And so, finally, the boots. This is where I'm going. Sorry. I feel like Jerry Seinfeld. But dude, okay, so like, this is awesome. Also a God thing. I get a text on the way there that says, hey, this is, what did I don't even say. Oh, I called Pam at the fire department because I knew she was in Grey Eagle. And I was like, hey, Pam, can you go and check to see if my boots are there? And she's like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. So I gave her the info, wrote down my number. And then she texted me this picture. It's my boots. It's a picture of my boots. And I'm like, no freaking way. Somebody found them at the shower people, found them, put them in lost and found. She found them. She says, I found them. They're on the next engine heading down to you. I'm like, no way. So and she says, expect a call that night. I get a call later that next morning. And this call is like, hey, is this Jake? And I'm like in the bathroom and I'm like, yeah. And he's like, this is Barrett. I got your boots. And I'm like, no freaking way, man. So I meet this guy, Barrett. He's from Santo, California, part of that engine. Shout out to them. They're near San Diego, Santo Fire Department. And Barrett was able to give me my boots. I gave him a big bear hug. And I still have his number. I need to text him because I need to ask what beer he wants because I'm going to go buy them beer. So as a thank you. So anyway, that was really awesome. So things are turning up, thankfully, at this point, out of a really crappy transition day from one fire to the next. And whew, let me tell you, man, it was like one of the roughest days we had this season. Just trying to get everything done and figure things out and work together as a team. So we're able to make it work. Let's see what happened after that. So day two, we are in the Silver Dollar Fairgrounds like we were with the Thompson Fire. We were there. So camp's way better set up. That's really nice. Also that night, David, I didn't fall asleep till like midnight. So it was really late because I was trying to find a parking spot because they called in so many resources for the park fire that the Silver Dollar Fairgrounds was packed. Like it was packed, man. There were so many people there and so many resources, so like little room to find a parking spot. I was able to sneak through the camp, David. Let me tell you, it's like 11:30 at night, right? I'm able to take the truck, go out the back entrance into where all the fancy Cal Fire people are, right? I go by the security guy, and I'm like, just act like you own the place, right? And so I just drove past the security guard, drove into there. My plan was if he stopped me, I'm going to say, where's logistics? That was my answer. And so I just, didn't even look his way, just kept going. Went around the whole fairground, was able to park near the sleepers, and was able, instead of walking like probably a mile away or half a mile away, it was nice to just be sneaky and park and be good. which I'll explain why that might not have been a good thing later. But day 2, we were diverted to Red Bluff, which is where we're at right now at the Tehama County Fairgrounds. And so we're there right now. We're staging north of the fire, is what I'll say. And right now we're trying to just make sure it doesn't slop over and continue on. It did jump 32, Highway 32, and it went toward Chester, Highway 44. But there's a ton of people and resources stationed on 44 just in case something happens there, and a ton of resources stationed on 36 to finish up and try to drive it back in. So let's see, we're in Red Bluff. They have everything there, David. This ain't the Forest Service. This is Cal Fire. We got sleepers. We got laundry. We got food. We got all the goods. We got everything's taken care of. It's awesome. And showers. Oh my God, you're able to take a shower. This is amazing. This is so cool. So yeah, I learned with the Forest Service, they're not quick on their feet. They don't provide all the goodies, which is fine. I was spoiled with Cal Fire. Got to make sure you bring your own stuff and prepare for that kind of thing. But when we're on Cal Fire, it's like, okay, we're good. We're safe. We can just chill out here. So we got everything at the Tehama County Fairgrounds. So it's really awesome. But let's see what's next. So we were at there, and we got there. Let's see. I think it was yesterday or the day before. What's today? Tuesday. So Sunday. We got there Sunday, and yeah, we've been working up north of the fire. We're actually deep into the mountain a little bit, down this like small canyon road, the small logging road actually. In fact, we have logging guys like there helping us guide us along these roads because Mario the day before last was in there 16 miles deep into the mountain, like south of Mineral, like I'd say around Mineral area, and he was in there 16 miles deep, and the fire was like, it was coming down that road. And so they had to actually, the hot shots, by the way, shout out to the hot shots. I was texting my friend Holly the other night when I was on the gold complex, and she said her cousin Megan was part of the Bureau of Land Management hot shots that were there on that fire. And she sent a picture. And let me tell you, David, shout out to your cousin Megan, Holly, because that was one of the most badass pictures I've ever seen. She's got her shovel, a big old smile, and her helmet, and she's just drenched in black suit, like, and she's like ready to go. You know, it was really cool. So and Mario told me, he asked me, he's like, who do you think are the hardest working people in this fire? I was like, well, probably the people at the front of the line. He's like, exactly, and those are the hot shots. And so shout out to all the hot shots out there, man. You guys are doing the work, man. Yeah, there's people that run dozers. Yeah, there's a ton of people that risk their life out there. But let's be real, like the hot shots are ones that are literally up against the fire and they're fighting it one-on-one. Shout out to you guys. So anyway, let's see what's happening. Day 2, we're in Red Bluff. We're getting things together. It's finally like a normal day. Like finally we have a normal freaking day after the brutal time we had in the gold complex and just the heat and everything. It was cooler in the mountains, but it was just hot, you know. And we were just trying to get accustomed to what they were trying to scramble the entire time we were there. And we left at the perfect. This is why God's timing is really great, David. By the time we left, the fire was like, in Gold Complex was starting to get contained. But right now, I think it's at like, I haven't taken the numbers yet, but a day or two ago it was at 80% containment. So we would have probably gotten kicked off of that fire already. And we might not have been called to this one here. So, which is crazy because we are literally one of the nearest resources locally for them. So anyway, Park Fire. This fire is huge. By the time we're a part of it, it's at 240,000 acres in like 3 days. It's crazy. This is the biggest fire I've ever been a part of. The biggest one prior to this was like 50,000 acres, maybe even less than that. And it's a big one, and it's heading up to 400K as we speak, I would say. And as we go along with today. July 29th of 2024, which you'll probably be hearing this on July 30th, 2024. So anyway, let me tell you, it's been pretty brutal, but yesterday was the first like normal day, man. Monday was like the first normal day we've had, and it was just fine. It was dandy. Got into our groove. a lot of really cool stuff happened between us and in our little crew of 3 people. And we just been working real hard together, making sure we're all taken care of and we're each other's priority. And that's really what it's about. It's Mario put it to me. It's I can't remember what he said. Never mind. But it's basically, you know how you have God, your priorities. You have God, family, and yourself. He has operators, business, and himself for his business operating. And I'm like, we're his number one priority. And he's my number one priority too, him and Chris. So I really do appreciate those guys and how wonderful they are and the good people they are. And I'm just incredibly grateful for, this is a really interesting growing season for me personally. And I'm really glad to see it because, in the past, in the last year or two, I invested a ton of money into this kind of thing and trying to get ready for it and get qualified for it. And then it was basically sitting around waiting for a call, which never came last year. So I got everything ready last year, invested a ton of money into it, and then there was no work. It was a dry year for fires. And then we were hoping that maybe we can get some work this year, and thankfully we're getting work. So, and we're saving communities. That's really what it's all about, man, is we're saving communities. Yeah, you get paid, but these are people's livelihoods, man. It's heartbreaking that people in Forest Ranch and Cohasset are outlive there and they can't go back or anytime soon. And it's just really, it's sad and unfortunate, and my heart goes out to them. I mean, going up 36 for operations, it was you see alfalfa fields in some of the valleys as you go through, and the first one is fine and the mountain behind him is burned, but you go to the next valley over as you're driving through the ridgeline on 36, and let me tell you, it was like the farmer lost half his fields, like half the fields burned, and it was really, really sad. And that's coming from a guy who grew up on a farm and knows what it takes to make money and to make a livelihood on a farm. And if you don't have your crop, if you don't have your cattle, you got nothing to sell or make money off of, which means you can't support yourself. I mean, if you lose your cattle, that's money walking away, Like when we had cows break out fences and go on the roads, that's literally like our money walking on the road right there. That's our livelihood. We need to get it back in here, So screw you environmentalists who say animals should be free. But I think that's actually the end of that for now. Right now, we're on the park fire. We're in the groove. We're in Red Bluff. Last night, I had a really interesting conversation. So if you guys remember our last episode going over wildfires and my Fresno story, we had some, I don't think I mentioned it, but we had some water tender fellers that were with us that were actually mechanics as well. And they got to know Mario really well, and they got to know each other. And they're actually working with us on this one, on Park. And I got to meet them officially last night. And they're really cool guys. Shout out, I think it's Cody, who's the boss, and Rod, who's his other guy. And they saved our butts in Fresno because that PTO was not working to get the sprayers going and everything, which was what our job was to do. And we could have got kicked off the fire if we had inoperable equipment, So again, livelihood. So those guys saved our butts back there, and I got to meet him last night, and Cody was super cool, dude. Like, oh my God, he's a really cool guy, and he was like adamant when he saw Mario last night and me. He's like, remember how I told you in Fresno, Mario? He's like, you gotta stay positive, man. Like, you are gonna go through the ish, man. You're gonna go through all this crap, and let me tell you, man, you gotta stay positive. And let me tell you, for me, and he shared some stuff. He's like, man, for me, it's been tough these last couple of days, but I gotta stay positive. And this was at dinner time, and he was grabbing dinner for his guys who were, out on the equipment. So his night guys. So he went and grabbed him dinner and was going to drive back to him. And then I got to meet Rod inside. It was funny when I sat down next to Rod, he thought I was Cody, and so which was his boss. And so I sat down next to Rod, and I'm just getting my dinner and going. And then Rod says, "Yeah, the Ford's kind of screwed." And then he looks over to me. He's like, "Oh shoot, you're not my boss." He's like really sad. He's like, "Yeah, I think the truck's dead, boss." And then he looks over. He's like, "Oh my God, you're not him." So he's like getting ready to say the bad news, and he told me the bad news, and I'm like, it's okay. I think you're fine, The truck still runs, right? And he's like, it does. I'm like, oh, there you go, you know? But no, those guys legit are really cool dudes and real chill. So I appreciate them. Let's see. When we were heading up to our operating area north of the fire, I got to meet a guy that I went to fire safety training with the year prior. The year I got invested in all of that and took my training. This guy was named John Lake. Badass name, cool looking dude, tall looking dude, real talkable dude. And so I recognized him. He was on a dozer. And he came up right next to the car. I'm like, I opened the door. I'm like, John. He's like, who are you? And I'm like, remember me, Jake? And he's like, oh, I do remember you. And so he's like, he was all smiles after that. He's like, dude, oh man, you're doing water tender stuff? And I'm like, yeah. And he's like, all right, cool. And he was so funny. He's like, man, you know how much them water tender guys are making right now? Because there's a shortage of CDL licenses. Man, they're offering them like $600, $700. And then he makes a face like this, David. It was so funny. This guy is like cracking me up. So it's cool to see a bunch of familiar faces. But yeah, man, it's like, I don't want to get too sappy or anything, but like God's been doing some really cool stuff, and it's a season of like growth after a year of limbo. And I think I'm actually going to do, I don't know if it's going to be podcast or sermon form, but I definitely want to talk about what you do, like in the future is what I'm talking about, like a sermon, like what to do in the limbo season and what you're doing while you're waiting. So we have different seasons in our life. It ebbs and flows. It goes in here, it goes from here to there. And let me tell you, I mean, the seasons we go through may not always be the ones we want to go through, but it's the ones we need to. And I didn't think I really need a season of waiting last year, waiting for the fires, waiting to get a call, waiting for everything to pay off that I invested in. Right now it's starting to pay off, and I still got quite a ways to go until it's all done. But let me tell you, I'm very grateful to God for what he's doing in my life and where he's taking me, and to see him work in Chris and Mario. Chris describes himself as a recovering Catholic. and Mario, I think, he's a believer, but I don't know if he's Christian. But he recognizes that, hey, God's moving. Like, there's stuff that we've realized all through this season so far, and the 5 fires we've been on, where he's told me straight up, God's walking with us, and he's with us right now. Like, and it's cool because I told him on Sight's fire, our first fire together on Calusa, I told him, I said, I pray that God's going to work in your life and talk to you in a way that you know and understand that he's going to talk to you in. You can interpret it the way that you understand it. Because God can do that for each and every person. And sure enough, this week, Mario told me that. He said, yeah, like, he said, like, I've been, like, there's some stuff that I've seen that it's definitely God talking to me. And I can't really explain it or why it's happening, but I know he's with us. And it just warms my heart to hear that, man, because that's answered prayers. And like, it's just been a wild time and God's green creation out there, man. And let me tell you, it's going to keep going. Let me tell you, right now the park fire is still going. We're starting to get a good handle on it. The perimeter is pretty much nearly set. There's still lots of danger with wind and slop over and hot spots and all that kind of stuff. So you just got to be careful of that kind of thing. So yeah, we're just making sure that it doesn't like catch over here or catch over there. It just stays in its area. Also, another thing I should mention is, in terms of details, a lot of the burning that's been happening on this fire has been real dirty burns. What's a dirty burn? Let me just say this. A dirty burn is when a fire burns really quickly through an area that it leaves a lot of vegetation not burned. So it'll burn grass, it'll burn through the vegetation and the brush, but the trees are still fine. So the trees are still green in a lot of the areas we're working out there, which means it can still catch on fire. Or there's a lot of grass patches and brush that never got burned, that got dodged out of the way of, that the fire just went a different path. So that stuff is still there. Like, it'll go through it, but it won't completely burn it all. So there's a lot of vegetation still out there that's dangerous, that can still cause something. So that's just something to keep in mind of. And one of the things I was going to mention, I think that was one of the questions we had, was different things they do to prevent the fire. So actually, one of the things they do, funny enough, to prevent a fire is to start a fire. And let me explain this. So for those unaware out there, you probably know this, David, but let me tell you for the audience, is sometimes when a fire is headed toward you, what's standing between you and the fire? The vegetation, the fuel. How do we get the fire out? How do we get itself out? Yeah, there's water. Yeah, there's retardant. Yeah, there's all this stuff we can use. But what if we burn the fire toward the fire? So you start a fire here, it burns toward the fire, and then it kind of just fizzles out, and it burns itself out. That's a tactic that is used when fighting wildfires, and it's a very effective tactic too. In fact, last night, David, I witnessed this, and whoo, let me tell you, it was interesting. We were on 36 going up. I had Chris in the car. I was going to take him to relieve Mario, and we got stuck on the free highway. Engines are lining the highway, man. Like there's probably 30 engines lining the highway, like a good mile or whatever, give or take. And they're starting to perform what's called a firing operation, which is what I just described, which is they set fire and then that burns into the next fire. So the fire was coming to 36. It already hopped 36 on different avenues, but they weren't trying to prevent it here. So we got stuck on the highway when they're doing this, and they started doing it next to our truck. So we're stuck I can't go behind me, can't go forward. There's incoming traffic, and there's a guy next to me, right? So this guy next to me is like, I rolled down my window, I'm like, hey, and so Chris is like, whose bright idea was this? And the guy answers with, which one? Because they had no traffic control. They should have had way more people on the other side of the freeway to prevent slopovers and hotspots from starting, because the wind was blowing quite a bit while we were there. And they're literally starting the firing operation. And you're like, dude, like you need way more people over there. But as we were driving by, we saw more people, and so that was good. But they definitely needed some traffic control, dude. And I get it. They're out there and they're doing stuff, but there's a process to this. That's an adequate way to do it. I know you want to get there and you want to get it going, but you got to have safety because there's civilians behind me, dude, or that were coming down from 36. So the guy that I answered the window, I roll up my window, we're waiting there, and we're recording the whole time, David. We're like, yeah, let's get this stuff, yeah. So we're recording them doing the firing operation. And, oh, man, let me tell you, there's guys behind me that are starting to turn around. So that's cool. So he's working, the guy that was answering my window is working his way back. And he started at the back and he's working his way toward me. And so I'm at the end. And the incoming traffic's in front of me. So it's going by me. It's going by the engines on the side of the road, and we're stuck. I'm like, ah, crap. He's like, get ready to hit the sucker in four-wheel drive and go, said Chris. And I'm like, okay, we'll see. And so I see Caltrans PG&E driving by. They're coming out in the end. They're coming in front of me. It's like the incoming traffic. I look out behind them. There's nobody there. And I'm like, wait, what? There's nobody there? And so I'm thinking, I think I know what I'm going to do. And Chris is like, get ready. And he's like, you know what you're going to do? And I'm like, yes, sir. And so I answer his question. I know exactly what I'm going to do. Then finally, Caltrans is going in front of us. And as the last Caltrans guy is going by, I see our pal Window Boy behind our truck, slapping the back of our truck and do this with his hand, like turn around, right? And right as he's doing that, a Caltrans goes by, I hit my flashers and just keep going. So I drive past the firing operation. I drive past all the engines. I leave that guy in the dust. I don't go too fast or anything. Got to be safe here. You know, I ain't going no 50 miles an hour. I'm going like 15. So yeah, we just drove off, and because we had to get to Mario. That's my priority, man. I don't care who's in the way. I got to get to my operator. He's my dude I got to take care of. So, because if we were back there, we probably would have to wait a half hour to an hour. And we already had to get to Mario. Also, by the way, the thing I mentioned on Gold Complex, I'll forget that. Anyway, so we're going down the freeway. We get it done, and we get to Mario. We get Chris there. I'm taking Mario back. I'm telling him about all this, but he's pretty tired, so I kind of laying off of it. And so we're taking video of some of the firing operation we've seen, and we get to the point where we're just at. And I'm like, what do I do? I know. I'm going to take off my hat so the guy won't recognize me. Hey, that's a good idea. Which is not a bad idea. So we go back and I see the guy. He's talking to some Cal Fire truck that's in the way. So we're leading the pack, me and Mario in the truck. And Mario's like, just keep going, Jake. Just keep going. Don't stop. Don't slow down. Don't slow down. Just keep going. Like I'm not in no dangerous speed zone, right? Like I'm not going super fast, but I have to go fast enough where it's safe and he can't stop me. So I take off my hat in case so he doesn't recognize me. And I just go around him and I keep going. And he like looks this way and he was like, oh shoot. And he's like still talking to his guy. I'm looking in the rearview mirror. And then everybody that was behind us just starts following. And I'm like, yeah, sucker, we got past you. So it was just a really funny experience and really pretty crazy because there's fire right there. I don't want the truck to get damaged. And I'm like, what do I do? And so I'm like, well, we're stuck. Oh, well, whatever. If the fire burns a little bit of the truck, it does. But it's not going to do insane damage to it. But yeah, it was a dangerous scenario, and it could have gotten real bad real quick, especially if they didn't have support on the other side where wind was blowing embers over. So you just got to be careful with that. I mean, they had engines. They had inmates' engines, prisoners working on the fire. They had a ton of dudes. Water tenders were on each end, just ready to go, loaded up. And let's see. That's one more thing I want to bring up before we kind of divert here. And is the politics of it all and the politics of the fire. And I'm just talking about the in-camp kind of things. There's plenty of state politics that happen where I'm sure officials are like, yo, we need to get this fire out now. Why isn't it out? And they know nothing about what's happening or what's going on. They just know that it's a high acreage and it looks bad and they're putting all this money into it. They don't want the National Guard there, but they probably going to get the National Guard. That's just going how it be. So there's that kind of politics, but then there's like in-camp politics where if you're a contractor, you're not really held in high regard. You're just there as a hired hand and you have a contract. That's about it. So, and there's some bad actors in CAL FIRE I've noticed that do, kind of look down upon you or get in your way or kind of want you to, adhere to their rules, but not the actual rules, They just want to make sure that they're in control of you. So there's some politics at play in this. So you just got to be careful. You want to make sure that if you are a contractor, you don't want to draw attention to yourself. You want to make sure you're out of their way. Avoid the people with the red hat in the uniforms, And I'm not saying be bad to them or anything, but just like, I'm just saying like it's a game you got to play sometimes. You just got to be aware of it because if you get on some of their bad sides, who knows what's going to happen? You never know. And this is something I've learned, I picked up along the way, and I'm not trying to manipulate anybody or anything. I'm just trying to be honest and say that sometimes there's some unsavory people inside CAL FIRE that'll try to get rid of you. You never know. So, which has not happened to us, but it's just something to be aware of because it's happened to other people. That's why I'm saying it. In fact, let me tell you this. Last night when we were talking to Rod and Cody, Rod was telling us, he's like, hey, are you guys in Red Bluff here? And we're like, yeah. And he's like, good. Don't go down to Chico, man. They kicked all the contractors out of there. I'm like, wait, what? He's like, yeah, man. My boss was down there yesterday or the day before, and we just got out of there the 3 days or 2 days before that, or before he's telling this to us, right? And so last night he's telling us, he's like, yeah, a couple days ago they went up to every single contractor and told them to get out of the camp. Like this CAL FIRE guy was going around and just said, you get the F out of here. Like, get out, go on. And they're like, what? What are you talking about? He's like, we're staging here. He's like, nope, not you. Get out of here. He's like, what about our equipment? What about hotels? Like, what about all this stuff? He's like, forget it. It doesn't matter. Get out of here. And I'm like, what the heck? Now that's just one person's story that I heard, and it could be hearsay. It's not biblical. It's not, in writing. But dude, let me tell you, I mean, there's some stuff that could happen. So you just want to make sure you're looked out for. So that's what I would say is just be careful out there in this world. So, yep, we're still on park. It's growing, but we're getting a handle on it. 14% containment as of today, and we'll see where it goes from here. But let me tell you, even if we're not working on this fire in about a month and a half, I think there's going to be still people working on this month in. Like a month from now, there's still going to be people working on this fire. Not because of, maybe not from putting down the flames, but cleanup, mop up, restoration of roads, and community, that kind of thing, especially roads. Like if some of these, dude, David, some of these dozers are huge, and when they go across the road, they're just breaking it up. But they have to get to where they're going. But that can cause damage to property and to roads and highways and all this kind of stuff. So there's definitely operations where people go and they restore the roads after the fires. It's part of the operations. They restore the roads and stuff like that. And sometimes you can, depending on what kind of resource you are, you can get in there and you can, potentially be there for quite a bit, and you're getting paid, so and so much a day. So it's a potential thing that we might be part of, but we'll see. But yeah, we'll probably be there for, I would say, another week or two is what my guess would be. But it's hard to gauge, But again, this thing is huge and it's still growing after a week. So I don't think they're going to start getting rid of a ton of people. Like, they're throwing heaven and earth at this thing right now, and I really don't think they're going to kind of get rid of the people that they just called, They're still calling people, in fact. So last night, my boss got a call again for requests for this fire. And he's like, we're already assigned to it. Because when we were in Grey Eagle, we got called like 3 times before we were diverted. And then we got diverted. And then we got another call last night about, hey, we need a water tender here. And we're like, we're already here. So they're going up and down that list again to try to get more people here. So it's a resource, man. And I've been hearing all kinds of things in camp the last couple of days of people can't finding guys to drive stuff, can't finding operators, can't find people with the proper license. In fact, in Butte Meadows, where we left the other day, there was a guy, the safety inspector found, that didn't have a tank endorsement on the guy's license. So the guy that got hired by him didn't check him, or just kind of scraped by and didn't want to bother with it. And well, you got to make sure you have your right stuff, because that guy was kicked off the fire, because that's a safety issue if you're not endorsed with tank. So on your license. So, and I have a class B with tank and air brakes, all that kind of stuff. So, oh man, let me tell you, it's been tough, but God's been really moving a lot, and I'm so great. Like, His grace and mercy truly abounds forever, and it's so amazing to see. And one aspect I think finally I'll say is I think the aspect of deprogramming, David. You know how you grow up and you're used to these kind of things as a kid, and then you're going to an adulthood and you're kind of like, oh, not everything is followed by a rule book. You kind of like have to think on your feet. You know what I'm talking about? Like in certain scenarios, you got to judge what they are. You have to have a certain amount of discernment. But you also have to think out of the box as well. There's a really cliche term used in higher education and in education in general saying never stop learning. And I've kind of always been like, yeah, whatever. I understand. But no, truly trying new things and different avenues and really taking a different approach to things and getting out of your comfort zone is truly where your growth and learning happens. And I know I say that from a point of advantage being in a growth season, but I feel like to activate a growth season, in all of God's perfect time, of course, but to activate a growth season, it takes a season of investment. And I think that's kind of what I want to say to the audience. And everybody's story is different. Everybody's avenue is diverse, and every path is a little different from the one before you, or your friends or family, or those around you, or those you know about. But it's just important to remember that with God, all things are possible. And it's important to remember that not everything goes according to your plan, because God has a perfect plan for you in relationships, in business, in career, everything. And I think it's important because people have told me they are going through a season of patience, a season of waiting, a season of inactivity. What are you doing in that inactivity? Why is it inactive? And what could you be doing while you're waiting for your, matter of speaking, boat to come in? You never really know what I think you never truly know your potential until you start the waiting. Because once the growing hits, then you're ready for it. And you're like, oh, okay, here we go, we're going. Because once the roller coaster starts, it ain't stopping. It will eventually, but you know what I mean. So I think the aspect of deprogramming from when you were a child to an adult is very important because you have to think on your feet. You have to think critically. You have to truly, there's a reason why you go from a child to an adulthood, There's a reason for all that. So that's pretty much all I have to say about the fire stuff. But I think it's deprogramming kind of transitions into something else entirely, especially to do like culturally, politically, all this kind of stuff. It's how you navigate this world. So David, what do you think about all this? The fires, the deprogramming, the hot summer days. What are you thinking of all this?
I'm not.
I'm just. What do you think, boys and girls?
I'm just here living day by day,
And I think there's nothing wrong with that, let me tell you, because that sounds very nice. Living day by day, whatever the Lord may throw your way,
I'm not going to say it's nice. It's just what I'm doing.
It's just what you're doing. Well, that's true. No, I get you. But, I think that's pretty much all I have to say. I don't know. Do you want to take this anywhere from here, David? Or, you got a Nick Cage shirt on. You going to vote for Nick Cage this election?
Yeah, probably.
Okay. Is Kanye still running? I don't think
well,
so.
it was between him, Kanye, and
Bill Nye.
Yes, definitely.
Yes, Bill Nye. Yeah. Bill Nye, he'd be he's actually kind of crazy.
No, yeah, Bill Nye is
Bill
straight
Nye's
up a psychopath, dude.
Psychopath, bro.
He's
Did you see that video he made where he's like, "All you who watched me growing up, screw you," like all this stuff.
Yeah, he's drank the cultural Kool-Aid, so to speak.
Oh man, yes, sir. He certainly has, and it's scary. You know what? It's funny how Dr. Oz went on to be or campaigned to be a congressman or a senator. Was it senator or congress? I think it's senator because Fetterman beat him.
It was a senator.
It's funny.
A senator is a congressman, but yes, a senator specifically of Pennsylvania.
Pennsylvania, that was it. Yeah. So, I wonder if Fetterman has to talk to any officials or investigate the Butler assassination at all.
Yeah, I don't know
because he's the congressman, so
I guess
constituents,
I guess he would be involved somehow. Although I don't know if it really pertains to the people of Pennsylvania necessarily. But I'm sure he's had his fair share of phone calls and meetings pertaining to it. And, he's probably sat there listening with that strokey look on his face. Sorry. I had to go there. I'm sorry.
Well, it's funny. It's funny because Last Stand Media, I was listening to some of their stuff, and Dustin, their producer, their editor, lives in Butler, Pennsylvania, as well as his friend Ben, who's also works for Last Stand Media. They both live in Butler, and so like the day the assassination happened, David, I don't know why I'm laughing, but the day the assassination on the on Trump happened, it was funny because like. He's like, guys, stop DMing me. I'm okay. Everything's fine. We're at a bar right now. We hear the sirens. That's pretty much all we're experiencing right now, So it's like, dang, okay, wow. So it's quite interesting times we live in, So,
yes, rather unprecedented.
Rather unprecedented times. So, you know what? In the times that we have and the wild times we have in God's creation, it's really interesting how just insane some stuff is. Like it's stranger than fiction, kind of like how the Bible is. I mean, the talking donkey, Samson beating people with a donkey jawbone, all that kind of stuff. And
is there something you want to say about donkeys, Jake?
Why?
You brought them up twice in a row.
Well, I want to talk about Fetterman, David. Oh, God. So, No, that's not what I want to talk about. I just think it's interesting how the crazy stuff that's happening in our society as we live in a society, is it's unprecedented, I guess is what I'm saying, wildfires always happen eventually. That's just how they do. And they happen in cycles, it seems. But I think in politics, it's there's some cycles as well. But culturally, and societally, there's also cycles when you think about it. You know what I mean? The fall of Rome, the fall of Babylon, all this kind of stuff. And everybody's like, is he going to say the fall of America? No, I'm not going to say that. I think we got another generation before that happens. And then the end times hit. So have fun, y'all. So, yeah, kids, good luck, son. Have fun with fighting that third trumpet when it hits, It's so bad. But we need to do an episode of Revelation. We need to do another anime episode, a podcast. I was thinking, like, we got some stuff we got to do. We got some record. Is there anything pressing you've been wanting to talk about on the podcast? Maybe not today, but the future, David. Like any topics or anything like that. Or maybe we should leave it as a surprise.
Yes.
Let's do a surprise.
Yeah,
I already said too much, I
think. Yeah.
I think I already said too much. So, well, I think I'm going to leave it there, David. Do you have any questions, inquiries, concerns about Jake or about what's going on in the world?
I mean, I'm very concerned, but no concerns.
No concerns, yeah. Man, the thing I just can't believe is those boots, man. Like, I can't get over that. Like, that's just, and the name, the thing that said Jake on the concrete, like I showed you the picture.
Yeah.
That's freaking, I can't get over that, man. Like, it's God working, dude. Like, oh man, it's craziness. So, well, anyway, with that, ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank you for listening to yet another episode of the Snarp Fangle Podcast. Any inquiries would be much appreciated at snarpfanglepod@gmail.com. Again, that's snarpfanglepod@gmail.com. If you have any inquiries or questions, thoughts, concerns, ideas, send them over our way in that email, and I'll be taking a look at them, and so will David, and we'll go from there. So we love you guys. We appreciate you. We thank you for we truly appreciate your time with us and your attention, as well as your attentive ears. We appreciate your ears especially, right, David? He's nodding, by the way. Oh, ladies and gentlemen, I have to be back by 5:45 to do the shift change. So I'm still on the fire, by the way. I was able to get a break today and come back and record. So anyway, I'm going to go do that tonight and maybe hang out a little bit here and maybe go visit some people. But yeah, we thank you so much for listening. You have a great day, and Snarp Fangle on.
Bye-bye now.